God says, your soulmate is facing a big problem, and it involves you. Don't skip. Listen carefully. This message is for you, because sometimes the greatest battles are not the ones people see. They happen quietly. Behind polite smiles. Behind ordinary conversations. Behind days that appear completely normal to everyone else. Your soulmate has been walking through one of those quiet seasons. Not because they stopped caring. Not because they wanted distance. Not because they suddenly forgot what matters to them. But because life has placed them in a situation that feels far more complicated than they ever expected. And listen to this. Every morning begins the same way. The sun rises. The world wakes up. Responsibilities wait. People go to work. Conversations begin. Life moves forward as though nothing unusual is happening. From the outside, everything appears ordinary. Yet inside their heart, there is a question they haven't been able to answer. A question they carry everywhere they go. A question that follows them through every quiet moment. What is the right thing to do? Because your heart needs this right now, because life's hardest decisions rarely come with obvious answers. Your soulmate has been learning that lesson. And listen to this. For a long time, they believed the situation would solve itself. Perhaps time would bring clarity. Perhaps circumstances would change. Perhaps tomorrow would feel easier than today. But tomorrow became another tomorrow. The uncertainty remained. Not growing louder. Simply remaining present. Patiently waiting to be faced. Because your heart needs this right now, because avoiding difficult questions rarely makes them disappear. Your soulmate quietly realized that. And listen to this. One afternoon they stepped outside to clear their thoughts. The breeze moved gently through the trees. Birds continued singing without worry. Children laughed in the distance. Neighbors greeted one another with warm smiles. Everything around them looked peaceful. Yet their thoughts felt unusually heavy. They realized something important. Sometimes the world continues smiling while someone quietly carries a burden nobody else can see. That realization made them more compassionate toward everyone they met. Because your heart needs this right now, because every person may be carrying challenges invisible to everyone else. Your soulmate began looking at people differently. And listen to this. As the day continued, they found themselves replaying conversations in their mind. Not searching for mistakes. Not searching for someone to blame. Simply wondering whether they had truly listened. Whether they had fully understood. Whether there was another perspective they had overlooked. The more they reflected, the more they realized that difficult situations rarely have simple explanations. Life is often more complex than first impressions. Because your heart needs this right now, because wisdom begins when we become willing to understand before reaching conclusions. Your soulmate quietly embraced that truth. And listen to this. As evening arrived, they sat alone in a peaceful place. The sky slowly turned shades of gold, orange, and deep blue. The silence around them felt comforting. For the first time all day, they allowed themselves to stop pretending everything was fine. Not because they wanted to give up. Because they needed honesty. Honesty with themselves. Honesty about their fears. Honesty about their hopes. Honesty about what truly mattered. Because your heart needs this right now, because healing often begins when we stop hiding from our own hearts. Your soulmate took that first step. And listen to this. Later that night, they quietly bowed their head in prayer. Not asking for life to become easy. Not asking every problem to disappear overnight. Instead, they prayed for wisdom. For patience. For courage. For the ability to choose kindness even when circumstances felt confusing. They understood that some challenges cannot be solved through fear. They require steady hearts and thoughtful decisions. Because your heart needs this right now, because many people find strength by seeking wisdom during difficult seasons. Your soulmate hoped for that strength. And listen to this. As they finished praying, another realization gently entered their heart. They couldn't control every outcome. They couldn't predict every tomorrow. They couldn't force every situation to unfold perfectly. But they could choose how they responded. They could choose honesty. They could choose compassion. They could choose patience. They could choose faith that difficult seasons eventually teach valuable lessons. That thought brought unexpected peace. Because your heart needs this right now, because peace often begins when we focus on what we can control instead of fearing what we cannot. Your soulmate felt that peace growing. And listen to this. The following morning, they opened a notebook and wrote several quiet reminders. Choose wisdom before reacting. Listen before assuming. Speak gently, even during difficult conversations. Remember that every person deserves compassion. Trust that today's challenges can become tomorrow's lessons. Reading those words slowly, they noticed something remarkable. The problem hadn't disappeared. Yet it no longer felt impossible. Their perspective had changed. Because your heart needs this right now, because a changed perspective often makes heavy burdens feel lighter. Your soulmate smiled quietly. And listen to this. As the day unfolded, they realized the situation wasn't only testing their patience. It was shaping their character. Teaching resilience. Teaching humility. Teaching understanding. Teaching them to become someone who responds thoughtfully instead of reacting impulsively. Every challenge was becoming a quiet teacher. Because your heart needs this right now, because difficult seasons often shape us in ways comfortable seasons never could. Your soulmate appreciated that lesson. And listen to this. Throughout the evening, they reflected on everyone who had encouraged them during past challenges. The friend who listened without judgment. The family member who offered wise advice. The stranger whose kindness arrived at exactly the right moment. Those memories reminded them that hope often arrives through ordinary people and ordinary conversations. Not always through dramatic events. That realization filled their heart with gratitude. Because your heart needs this right now, because encouragement often comes through simple acts of care and compassion. Your soulmate remembered every one of those moments. And listen to this. Before going to sleep, they stood quietly beside the window. The stars stretched across the night sky. The world outside had become still. Inside their heart, another truth gently settled. The greatest problem wasn't uncertainty itself. It was believing they had to face uncertainty alone. Once they accepted that asking for wisdom, support, and honest conversation was a strength rather than a weakness, the burden felt easier to carry. Because your heart needs this right now, because reaching out for understanding is often an act of courage. Your soulmate quietly accepted that. And listen to this. One final thought remained with them before they closed their eyes. A thought they hoped never to forget. Every difficult season carries an opportunity to become wiser, kinder, and more compassionate. Every challenge invites us to choose patience over panic. And every meaningful relationship grows stronger through honesty, understanding, and grace. Those words stayed with them. Not as a prediction that God has revealed a specific future event, but as a faith-inspired reminder that difficult seasons can become opportunities for growth when approached with wisdom, compassion, and sincere communication. Because your heart needs this right now, because hope grows strongest when we meet life's uncertainties with courage, empathy, and faith. Your soulmate closed their eyes feeling calmer than they had in many days. The problem had not vanished. But they no longer believed they had to face it with fear. Don't skip. Listen carefully. This message is for you, because after spending countless days carrying the weight of uncertainty, your soulmate finally reached a moment where they realized they could no longer postpone the decision resting on their heart. Not because every question had been answered. Not because every fear had disappeared. Not because life had suddenly become simple. But because they understood that some seasons are not meant to last forever. Eventually, every heart must choose whether it will continue living in fear or begin walking forward with faith. And listen to this. The morning arrived quietly. The first light of dawn stretched across the room. The birds welcomed another day. The world outside carried on exactly as it always had. People hurried to work. Children laughed on their way to school. Neighbors greeted each other with familiar smiles. Everything looked ordinary. Yet inside their heart, another conversation had already begun. A conversation no one else could hear. A conversation between fear and hope. Because your heart needs this right now, because the greatest battles often happen silently within us before anyone else notices a change. Your soulmate was living through one of those battles. And listen to this. For weeks they had asked the same questions. Am I making the right decision? What if I misunderstand everything? What if I wait too long? Every answer seemed incomplete. Every possibility created another uncertainty. The more they searched for perfect clarity, the more they realized that life rarely offers certainty before asking us to move forward. That realization stayed with them. Because your heart needs this right now, because wisdom often begins when we accept that we cannot control every outcome. Your soulmate slowly accepted that truth. And listen to this. Later that morning, they stepped outside hoping a quiet walk might calm their thoughts. The breeze moved gently through the trees. The sunlight filtered between the branches. Everything in nature seemed peaceful. The birds didn't worry about tomorrow. The flowers simply bloomed where they had been planted. The rivers continued flowing without questioning where they would eventually arrive. Watching these simple things reminded them that creation often moves forward with quiet trust. Perhaps people were meant to do the same. Because your heart needs this right now, because faith often grows when we remember that not every step requires complete understanding. Your soulmate carried that thought with them. And listen to this. As they continued walking, they remembered a difficult season from years earlier. At the time, they believed that chapter would never end. They had prayed. They had waited. They had questioned whether better days would ever arrive. Yet somehow, little by little, life had moved forward. New opportunities appeared. Unexpected encouragement arrived. Strength grew quietly while they weren't paying attention. Looking back, they realized something beautiful. The prayers they thought had gone unanswered had actually been answered differently than they expected. Because your heart needs this right now, because sometimes the greatest blessings arrive through unexpected paths. Your soulmate smiled as they remembered. And listen to this. That afternoon they sat alone beneath the shade of an old tree. For several peaceful minutes they said nothing. No phone. No distractions. No endless search for answers. Only silence. Inside that silence another realization gently appeared. The problem they were facing wasn't only asking them to make a decision. It was asking them to become a different person. Someone more patient. Someone more compassionate. Someone more willing to trust God's timing instead of demanding immediate certainty. That thought changed everything. Because your heart needs this right now, because many challenges shape our character long before they change our circumstances. Your soulmate quietly embraced that lesson. And listen to this. As evening approached, they opened a small notebook they often carried with them. Instead of writing about worries, they began writing prayers. Lord, help me choose wisdom instead of fear. Teach me to speak with kindness even when emotions are strong. Give me patience while I wait for clarity. Help me remember that every person deserves grace. Let today's uncertainty become tomorrow's testimony of your faithfulness. Each sentence made their heart feel lighter. Not because the situation disappeared. Because they no longer felt like they were carrying it alone. Because your heart needs this right now, because prayer can help people find peace even when circumstances remain uncertain. Your soulmate experienced that peace. And listen to this. As darkness slowly covered the sky, they reflected on everyone who had encouraged them throughout life. A parent who believed in them. A friend who stayed during difficult times. A mentor who offered wise advice. A stranger whose unexpected kindness arrived exactly when it was needed. Those memories reminded them that God often works through ordinary people doing ordinary acts of love. That realization filled them with gratitude. Because your heart needs this right now, because encouragement often arrives through simple acts of compassion. Your soulmate thanked God for every person who had helped shape their journey. And listen to this. Before going home, they looked up at the stars. The sky stretched endlessly above them. The quiet night reminded them how small their worries seemed compared with the greatness of God's creation. For the first time in many days, they stopped asking, "Why is this happening?" Instead, they gently asked, "What can this season teach me?" That one question changed the direction of every thought that followed. Because your heart needs this right now, because growth often begins when we stop asking only for easier circumstances and start asking for greater wisdom. Your soulmate felt that wisdom beginning to grow. And listen to this. Later that night, they wrote 5 promises they hoped to remember regardless of what happened next. I will choose faith over fear. I will seek understanding before making assumptions. I will treat others with patience, even during difficult conversations. I will trust that every season has a purpose. I will remember that God often prepares the heart before changing the situation. Reading those promises brought unexpected comfort. Not because tomorrow had become predictable, but because they finally knew how they wanted to walk through tomorrow. Because your heart needs this right now, because peace often comes from deciding who we will be, even when we cannot control what will happen. Your soulmate found strength in that decision. And listen to this. As they prepared to rest, one final realization quietly settled into their heart. The biggest problem they were facing wasn't meant to destroy them. It was inviting them to grow in patience, to deepen their faith, to become more compassionate, to trust God one day at a time. That realization transformed their fear into quiet hope. Because your heart needs this right now, because difficult seasons can become powerful opportunities for spiritual growth when approached with faith and humility. Your soulmate closed their eyes with a calmer heart than they had felt in many weeks. The road ahead was still uncertain. The answers had not all arrived. But they believed they would not walk that road alone. And before sleep came, one final thought remained. Faith doesn't always remove every obstacle. Sometimes faith gives us the strength to keep walking until the obstacle no longer defines our journey. Those words stayed with them. Not as a claim that God has revealed a specific future event about your soulmate, but as a fictional, faith-inspired reminder that hope, wisdom, prayer, and honest communication can help people navigate life's most difficult seasons with courage and grace. Don't skip. Listen carefully. This message is for you, because after many days of uncertainty, after countless quiet prayers, after moments when hope felt distant and every answer seemed just out of reach, your soulmate reached a turning point they never expected. Not because every problem suddenly disappeared. Not because every prayer was answered exactly as they imagined. Not because every question finally had a clear solution. But because something inside their heart began to change before anything around them did. And listen to this. The morning began in complete silence. Before the world had fully awakened, they found themselves sitting near a window, watching the first rays of sunlight slowly brighten the sky. Everything felt still. No distractions. No conversations. Only quiet reflection. For several minutes, they simply breathed deeply and allowed themselves to be present. Instead of rushing to solve every problem, they decided to sit peacefully in God's presence. Because your heart needs this right now, because sometimes the greatest answers come after we stop demanding immediate solutions and simply become willing to listen. Your soulmate discovered that quiet wisdom. And listen to this. For weeks they had been asking, God, why is this happening? Why is everything so confusing? Why does every decision feel so difficult? Yet that morning, another question gently entered their heart. Lord, what are you teaching me through this? The moment that question changed, their perspective changed with it. Instead of searching only for escape, they began searching for purpose. Instead of asking only for easier circumstances, they asked for greater wisdom. Because your heart needs this right now, because the questions we bring before God often shape the lessons we receive. Your soulmate quietly embraced that truth. And listen to this. As they opened their Bible that morning, they weren't searching for one specific verse. They simply wanted encouragement. They wanted hope. They wanted a reminder that difficult seasons never last forever. Every page reminded them of something important. People throughout history had also faced uncertainty. They had experienced fear. They had waited patiently. They had prayed through impossible situations. Yet again and again, God remained faithful even when the path ahead looked unclear. That realization filled their heart with peace. Because your heart needs this right now, because remembering God's faithfulness in the past can strengthen our faith for today. Your soulmate held on to that reminder. And listen to this. Later that afternoon, they stepped outside for a slow walk. The wind gently moved through the trees. Clouds drifted across the sky. Birds continued singing without worrying about tomorrow. Watching creation quietly reminded them that everything has its season. The flowers did not bloom before their time. The rivers did not rush toward the ocean. The sun never hurried to set. Everything unfolded according to God's perfect design. Perhaps their own journey required the same patience. Because your heart needs this right now, because God's timing often teaches patience before revealing purpose. Your soulmate reflected deeply on that lesson. And listen to this. As they continued walking, memories quietly returned. They remembered difficult seasons they thought would never end. The disappointments. The unanswered prayers. The moments they believed hope had disappeared completely. Yet looking back now, they realized every one of those seasons had prepared them for something greater. Each hardship had strengthened their faith. Each delay had developed patience. Each disappointment had redirected them toward unexpected blessings. Nothing had been wasted. Because your heart needs this right now, because even painful seasons can become preparation for future growth. Your soulmate smiled through grateful tears. And listen to this. That evening they sat alone beneath the fading sunset. The sky glowed with soft shades of gold, orange, and deep blue. For several peaceful minutes they simply watched the beauty unfolding before them. No rushing. No endless planning. Only gratitude. It suddenly became clear that peace wasn't found after every problem disappeared. Peace began when they trusted that God remained present even while the answers were still unfolding. That realization lifted a burden from their heart. Because your heart needs this right now, because faith isn't always knowing what comes next, it's trusting God while taking the next faithful step. Your soulmate quietly accepted that. And listen to this. Later that night they returned home and opened their journal. This time they didn't write about fear. They didn't write about confusion. Instead, they wrote about everything they had learned. God is teaching me patience. God is teaching me compassion. God is teaching me to listen before reacting. God is teaching me to trust Him more than my own understanding. God is teaching me that growth often happens quietly before anyone else notices. Reading those words brought unexpected comfort. The circumstances had not completely changed. But they had. Because your heart needs this right now, because when our hearts change, even difficult situations begin to look different. Your soulmate experienced that transformation. And listen to this. Another thought quietly entered their heart. Perhaps the biggest problem wasn't meant to become the end of their story. Perhaps it was becoming the beginning of a stronger faith. A deeper trust. A kinder heart. A wiser perspective. The burden they had feared for so long had slowly become a teacher. That realization filled them with hope. Because your heart needs this right now, because every difficult chapter has the potential to shape a more compassionate future. Your soulmate understood that deeply. And listen to this. As the evening grew quieter, they remembered every person who had encouraged them throughout life. The friend who prayed with them. The family member who refused to give up on them. The stranger who showed unexpected kindness. The mentor whose wise words arrived exactly when they were needed. Looking back, they realized God had never truly left them alone. Support had always appeared, sometimes in unexpected ways. That realization made gratitude overflow inside their heart. Because your heart needs this right now, because hope often arrives through ordinary people showing extraordinary kindness. Your soulmate thanked God for every one of those moments. And listen to this. Before going to bed, they knelt one more time in prayer. Not asking for immediate miracles. Not demanding instant solutions. Instead they whispered, "Lord, help me become the person you are preparing me to be. Give me wisdom before decisions. Give me peace before answers. Give me compassion before judgment. Help me trust you one day at a time." As those words left their lips, something remarkable happened. The fear that had followed them for so long became quieter. Not because every uncertainty disappeared. Because faith had become louder than fear. Because your heart needs this right now, because courage often grows when we choose to trust even before every answer arrives. Your soulmate felt that courage growing. And listen to this. Before closing their eyes, one final realization gently settled into their heart. A realization they knew would remain with them for years to come. God isn't only interested in changing my circumstances. He's also shaping my heart. And sometimes the greatest miracle isn't that the problem disappears overnight. It's that I become stronger, wiser, and more compassionate while walking through it. Those words became the foundation of their hope. Not as a claim that God had revealed a specific future event, but as a faith-inspired reminder that prayer, patience, wisdom, and compassion can transform the way we face life's challenges. Because your heart needs this right now, because even when the road ahead remains uncertain, faith can give us the strength to keep walking with hope, kindness, and trust. Your soulmate closed their eyes that night with a peaceful heart. The answers were still unfolding. The journey wasn't finished. But for the first time in a long while, they believed that every step, even the difficult ones, could still lead them closer to the person God was helping them become. Don't skip. Listen carefully. This message is for you, because after every restless night, after every prayer whispered through tears, after every moment of wondering whether things would ever become clear, after every lesson that quietly reshaped their heart, your soulmate finally reached a place they never imagined possible. Not because every obstacle suddenly disappeared. Not because every question immediately received an answer. Not because life suddenly became effortless. But because something far more important happened first. Their heart changed. And listen to this. For so long they believed peace would arrive only after every problem had been solved. They thought joy belonged somewhere in the future. Somewhere beyond uncertainty. Somewhere beyond fear. Somewhere beyond unanswered questions. Yet God gently taught them something different. Peace is not always found at the end of the journey. Sometimes peace begins the moment we decide to trust Him with the journey itself. Because your heart needs this right now, because faith often grows strongest before circumstances begin to change. Your soulmate slowly understood that truth. And listen to this. One quiet morning they woke before sunrise. The world was still. The streets were silent. Only the first light of dawn slowly stretched across the horizon. They sat beside the window with a warm cup of coffee and simply watched the sky brighten. There was no rush. No endless planning. No desperate search for answers. Only stillness. Only gratitude. Only quiet trust. For the first time in many weeks, they weren't asking, God, when will this end? Instead, they whispered, Lord, help me be faithful today. That small prayer changed everything. Because your heart needs this right now, because sometimes the smallest prayers become the beginning of the greatest transformation. Your soulmate felt their heart becoming lighter. And listen to this. As the day unfolded, they noticed something beautiful. Nothing around them had dramatically changed. The same responsibilities remained. The same unanswered questions still existed. The same difficult conversations had not yet happened. Yet their response was completely different. Instead of feeling trapped by uncertainty, they felt guided by hope. Instead of focusing on everything they couldn't control, they focused on what they could choose today. Kindness. Patience. Honesty. Faith. Compassion. Those choices suddenly felt more powerful than fear. Because your heart needs this right now, because we often discover strength when we stop trying to control tomorrow and faithfully live today. Your soulmate quietly embraced that lesson. And listen to this. Later that afternoon they walked through a peaceful garden. Flowers quietly bloomed without competing with one another. Trees stood patiently through every season. Birds continued singing without worrying about next week. Watching creation reminded them that everything God made grows according to its season. Nothing blooms too early. Nothing remains winter forever. Everything unfolds with purpose. Perhaps their own life was unfolding the same way. Because your heart needs this right now, because trusting God's timing often requires believing that unseen growth is still taking place. Your soulmate smiled gently. And listen to this. As they reflected on the difficult season behind them, another realization quietly entered their heart. The biggest problem had never only been the situation itself. It had been the fear that the situation would define their future. Now they understood something completely different. Challenges are chapters, not entire stories. Storms are seasons, not permanent homes. Pain is real, but it is not always the final word. That realization filled them with hope. Because your heart needs this right now, because hope reminds us that today's chapter is not the end of tomorrow's story. Your soulmate carried that hope forward. And listen to this. As evening approached, they remembered every prayer they thought had gone unanswered. Every moment they believed heaven had become silent. Every day they wondered whether God was still listening. Looking back, they noticed something remarkable. Even when circumstances remained difficult, strength had quietly increased. Patience had quietly grown. Wisdom had quietly matured. Compassion had quietly deepened. Perhaps God had been answering in ways they hadn't recognized. Not by removing every obstacle immediately, but by preparing their heart to walk through those obstacles with greater faith. Because your heart needs this right now, because growth often becomes visible only when we pause long enough to look back. Your soulmate finally looked back with gratitude. And listen to this. That evening they opened their journal one final time. Instead of writing about problems, they wrote about blessings. The people who encouraged them. The lessons they never expected to learn. The quiet moments when peace appeared unexpectedly. The strength they discovered during difficult seasons. The kindness they received from others. The patience they had slowly developed. The faith that remained even when certainty did not. Reading those pages brought tears to their eyes. Not tears of sadness. Tears of gratitude. Because they realized God had been walking beside them all along. Because your heart needs this right now, because gratitude often reveals blessings we couldn't fully recognize while living through difficult seasons. Your soulmate's heart overflowed with thankfulness. And listen to this. Later that night they knelt beside their bed once again. But this prayer sounded different. Not because life had become perfect. Because their perspective had changed. They whispered, "Lord, thank you for never leaving me. Thank you for teaching me patience. Thank you for giving me strength when I thought I had none left. Thank you for reminding me that your timing is wiser than my own. Help me continue choosing faith, kindness, and humility every day." As they finished praying, an unexpected peace settled over them. Not excitement. Not certainty. Peace. A quiet confidence that whatever tomorrow held, they would not face it alone. Because your heart needs this right now, because faith does not promise an easy road, it reminds us that we never walk it by ourselves. Your soulmate rested in that assurance. And listen to this. Before turning off the light, they wrote 5 final promises on the last page of their journal. I will trust God even when I cannot see the whole path. I will choose grace instead of bitterness. I will seek understanding before judgment. I will remain thankful during every season. I will remember that every challenge can become an opportunity to grow closer to God and to become a kinder person. Those promises became more than words. They became the foundation of a new chapter. A chapter built on hope instead of fear. Faith instead of worry. Compassion instead of resentment. Because your heart needs this right now, because the strongest hearts are often shaped during the seasons they once prayed would end. Your soulmate accepted that truth with humility. And listen to this. As sleep slowly arrived, one final realization gently settled into their soul. A realization they knew they would carry for the rest of their life. God didn't promise that every road would be easy. But He promised His presence through every season. And sometimes the greatest miracle isn't that the storm immediately ends. It's discovering that God has quietly given us the strength, wisdom, and peace to keep walking through it with faith. Those words became the quiet ending to one season. And the hopeful beginning of another. Not because every circumstance had changed overnight. But because their heart had learned to trust before seeing every answer. Because your heart needs this right now, because faith grows strongest when we continue choosing hope, love, patience, and compassion even while the future remains uncertain. Your soulmate closed their eyes with peace they hadn't felt in a long time. The journey wasn't over. The future was still unfolding. But they no longer feared what tomorrow might bring. They trusted the one who would walk with them into tomorrow.